So, welcome to our webinar, Carbon Neutral. In this webinar, our expert Eduard Meissner will show you on the base of a German practical example how the 3 steps to a carbon neutral company can look like. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the chat function. We will answer them after the webinar. And now I hand over to my colleague Eduard Meissner and wish you a good webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Anna, for the introduction, and also very warm welcome from my side. Warm welcome to the webinar, as we call it, 3 steps to carbon neutral production. We as PA Solutions, together with a partner from the field of energy management and energy purchasing and energy optimization, have developed this program. And I will show you today in this how this program look like and what are the steps that needs to be taken to achieve climate neutrality. Yeah, the world is changing and it's time to act. Here we have some headlines from newspapers and news websites that are indicating that climate change is threatening our planet, and that people are starting to take this topic seriously. And no matter where we are looking, in which industry or in which country, there's an ongoing change, and as well in the industry, as well, but also in the mindset of the people. And different administrations and governments are offering subsidies and fundings and supporting all the invests with big budgets, whether this is in Europe, in Asia, or in the US. No matter where you are, the most governments are supporting these topics. And on the other hand, even courts are ruling companies, like in this case Shell, for example, is shown here, to improve their climate strategies. Yeah, as already mentioned, the topic of climate change is on top of every agenda in the economy, but also in society and politics. Nowadays, it's even clear that the carbon neutrality is also important for the reputation of companies. When we are looking at the stock market and the rating and evaluation criteria of shares, and even in the bonus programs of the CEOs, the goal for carbon neutrality, or at least for decarbonization, is in there. And these are criteria that companies must take into consideration. But also in this context, our industry and our customers can't ignore the economic situation and are still in competition with other companies. And especially for international companies, this topic is a huge challenge. And therefore, governmental fundings or subsidy programs are very important to support that kind of projects and to drive this whole agenda. On the other hand, we see that the prices for energy and all energy-related taxes, like the new European carbon tax, will increase the price for fossil fuels and push the industry to act. And also the prices for carbon credits will continue to rise. And the combination of these both factors, so the price for the fossil fuels and the competition in the market, the combination of these both factors are important when we talk about the economical perspective and the business plans or investment plans for that kind of investments. But the future is not as black as some may see. There are already first successful stories or success stories also in the process industry, where companies already achieved this carbon neutrality. And we will have a look on one of these projects that were executed in Germany. As already said, there are 3 main pillars to achieve the net zero carbon emissions. The first pillar are projects to improve the energy efficiency. As we all know, the industry is already doing that kind of projects for the last 20 or even 30 years. The examples for that kinds of projects are, for example, the modernization of lighting systems or the modernization of drives by using VFDs. But there's still room for improvement in the most plants, even if these are not the low-hanging fruits. But one example for improvement might be the utilization of existing process heat that is not used yet in the whole energy stream. These kinds of projects already require interdisciplinary teams. So these are not the very simple projects in the most cases, but yeah, as mentioned, no longer the low-hanging fruits. As shown here in the graph, the potential on the path to carbon neutrality might be estimated with 10 or 20% when we are looking on the whole graph. So of course, this is not the biggest portion, but nevertheless, it's still important. And yeah, this 10 or 20% is just a rough estimation, and this might look very different for different industries and different plants. That's the first step, or the first pillar. The second pillar is the application of renewable energy, and this is for sure the biggest step that can be made by substitute the fossil fuels, the fossil energies by renewables like sun, wind or water energy, and the utilization of that kind of energy by green hydrogen. And when we are talking about green hydrogen, at the moment it seems like that the production of green hydrogen in an industrial scale is most promising with electrolyzers. And when we're talking about electrolyzers, there are a number of issues to be addressed when it comes to the production of green hydrogen. For example, beginning with the selection of the proper electrolysis process. And this is related to the intended operating mode. For example, whether the operating mode intended is static, then it's an alkaline electrolyzer. If it's more dynamic operating mode required, then it's the PEM electrolysis. Or if there is process heat available that can be used for that application, then there are the SOEC, the solid oxide electrolyzers that might be used. And when we're talking about green hydrogen, it means, of course, that the hydrogen is produced with green energy or green electricity. And there it's important to discuss or to evaluate whether it makes sense to generate the green electricity in-house, or if it's possible and reasonable, or whether it makes sense to purchase green electrical energy. One more important point in this regard is yeah, to think about the operating mode of the electrolyzers, and this might depend on the contract with the energy supplier. If you want to react flexibly on the market situation in the electricity market, if you want to produce hydrogen, for example, during the time where the electricity price is low, or if you even want to connect this to the weather situation. If you have a PV or wind parks, that might be an issue, and all these topics has to be considered. And to evaluate all these topics, several disciplines are needed. For example, experts from the energy purchasing, expert from the process engineering that might be helpful to select the proper process method, and also experts from the field of subsidy and funding programs. And the third bar is a compensation of the remaining carbon footprint by investing in global carbon credits projects like planting trees or building wind farms or other certified green projects. Unfortunately, we must say that currently it's not realistic that most industrial companies can reduce their entire carbon footprint to zero in real terms, at least according to the current state of the art and the amount of renewable energies that are currently available across the globe. However, purchasing of carbon credits offers the possibility of achieving climate neutrality in the balance sheet. The projects and the certificates are available in limited quantities, and the price increases, of course, in accordance to the demand. And the earlier a company invest in this certificates, there's a better price it can achieve here. And one thing that might be important here, or that needs to be taken into consideration, is that there are differences in the projects. For example, there must be considered if a company wants to use that kind of projects that they are investing in for the marketing matters. For example, when they are saving the rainforest or other nice projects that are relevant for the marketing issues, then you can take this also in consideration. And that means marketing topics must also be considered in this regard. And with these three pillars, or these three steps, a company is now already CO2 neutral or carbon neutral in the balance sheets, and it can still realize more energy efficiency and energy substitution projects to reduce this amount of credits step by step in the next time. Now that we have seen the pillars, so the three options to achieve carbon neutral production, the question is, how can this really look like in a real project, and what is the biggest challenge in that kind of projects? And we would like to have a short survey here, and we would like to ask you to participate in this. The question is, where do you see the biggest challenges? When the windows appear, you have 30 seconds to click an answer and then to click on send. And Anna would like to ask you to start the survey. So we have the first result here. Where do you see the biggest challenge? And it seems like the most answers are on the topic of costs. Means the biggest challenge seems to be, in your opinion or your expertise, the costs for that kind of projects. No answer is given for the point of sufficient available quantity of renewable energy. This is quite interesting, because often we hear that it's not realistic to achieve this goal, since we need way more renewable energy. But if it comes to costs, of course, that's really important to consider subsidy and funding programs, and to have a good business plan to achieve that the goal. Thanks for your participation. So as mentioned in the beginning, there are already success stories in the industry. Here we have one company. We call this company here Baltic Chemie. That has already gone this route of one of its sites in Germany. This customer name here is fictional, but the project was real and was actually implemented in this way. The customer, Chemie Plant Berlin, has set the goal to achieve climate neutrality in the short term in 2021, and to reduce the real carbon emissions by 75% by 2035. And since the customer has no expertise in this whole CO2 or carbon topics, and had no idea about carbon neutral calculations, and just a rough overview about his energetic situation on site, he was looking for support for PA and for our energy management partner, and that's where we step in. Yeah, how does such a program look like? Here we can see four main phases: the analysis, the planning, the efficiency improvement measurements, and the compensation. In the first step, we had a project, or we are usually doing a workshop project with the customer to align on the basic understanding of climate neutrality topics, to record the situation at site and bring all participants on the same level of knowledge. And this is also then the basis for the decision about scope and reporting for the project. And then we are starting to collect the data, and here we use an energy monitoring system that calculates the footprint also, and is collecting all the data from all meters and from all measurements. And the fourth step, we take a closer look to the company's plants and machines, and our experts inspect the technology and compile a list of measures that can be taken or that can be executed to save emissions, and in most cases on the long term also money and energy. And then in the fifth step, we're implementing the project that the customer is deciding to go on. And in the sixth step, then we have a new and reduced footprint that is automatically reported from our energy management system. And then we come to the point that this new reduced carbon footprint can be compensated with carbon credits. And from this step on, the steps 3 to 7 are repeated each year, and the customer can reduce his carbon footprint with each action, and he can decide each year where the invested money brings the most carbon reduction. So that this is really a question of funding, of subsidizing situation, and then the investment can be done. That's a rough overview about the project plan. What does this footprint look like at the beginning of the project? The pie chart on the left summarizes the energy consumption data of the customer in Berlin from the year 2019, where we see, for example, the diesel consumption of all cars and sprinters that are belonging to the site, and the natural gas and electricity for the production halls and for the office buildings. And here we can see 30 gigawatt hours of natural gas consumption, 20 gigawatt hours of electricity, and 18 gigawatt hours of diesel. And of course, the resulting CO2 footprint on the right side, it's more or less an equivalent with 6,200 tons of CO2 equivalent, 4,600 tons for the diesel, and 7,000 tons for the electrical power. And why is here mentioned the tons CO2 equivalent? What does it mean? Well, in general, all gas house emissions are calculated in different measures and are then weighting in the size of a CO2 equivalent. And now the customer has an overview about his situation on site. And in order to reliably record this footprint, as already mentioned, an energy monitoring system is required, and that is really a basic or a baseline for this topic, since there's often a very, very heterogeneous landscape in place, and for that purpose, VSPA has developed an energy monitoring solution that is cloud-based, that's very smart and intuitive for customers. Yeah, and then after recording the footprint, we decided to go on with one of the efficiency projects. And here we have an overview of the project. What was this about? It was about the eliminating of an existing furnace. How? Not by a furnace, but of a vessel, by using the waste heat from existing flame furnaces. So by this measure, we can save natural gas and emissions, and of course, also costs in the long term. Yeah, then the hot water is produced with heat from the plate heat exchanger mixed with cold water, and then it's utilized in the production and also for sanitizing topics. How was the business case for this project? Well, the invest was 1.36 million euro for the whole project, which would lead to a return of invest of 7 years and 4 months. Since this kind of projects are falling under the support grant of German government fund, we could save 410 euros by saving this funding opportunities. and reduce the return on invest to 5 years and 8 months. The annual savings over the measure are summarized in the table below. By using the waste heat, natural gas was saved, but electricity is needed to the conversion of the process of the waste heat into water tank by using blowers and pumps and so on. And this electricity is, of course, subtracted from the savings, and this leads to the result in the last line. Yeah, well, to this savings, in addition, must be considered saved taxes, saved levies, network charges, and also carbon credits costs and CO2 taxes in Europe. So with the measures just shown and the additional construction of a PV system, and with the replacement of 2 of the oldest passenger cars with electrically powered vehicles, 1,200 tons of CO2 equivalent could be saved compared to the previous year. So the overall energy consumption has decreased from 68,000 megawatt hours to 61,000, and the footprint for the carbon footprint has also reduced from 17,800 tons to 16,600 tons. And in this context, the customer decided not to green his electricity consumption, which has increased via the heat recovery and electric cars, by purchasing green electricity, because for the time being, this electricity consumptions will be compensated by investing in green projects, as this is significantly cheaper for the customer. But at the end, it's the same way to get green. Now let's have a closer look to the carbon footprint and the forecast for the next years. As we have seen, the footprint was reduced by 1,200 tons of CO2 equivalent, and the remaining footprint, plus a small buffer, is now offset by investing in climate projects. The goal, as mentioned, is to make the customer immediately green, and it's done by the compensation, this 16,600 tons. And this will get smaller and smaller over the years, so that the real saving of greenhouse gases increases, and so that the invest or the costs for the climate projects become smaller and smaller over time. And to achieve this, additional measures must be taken, and we have some of them listed here on the right side, and this must be implemented in the future. For example, the installation of an efficient heating system, or the extension of thermal insulation of the facilities, but also the substitution of further vehicles in the fleet. Yeah, the buffer listed here is part of the offsetting of emissions via the climate projects. The buffer is roughly about of 300 tons CO2, which you can overbuy to make sure that you have not emitted more CO2 than you have compensated. Yeah, so coming to the end of this issue, and what are the lessons learned? What were the lessons learned of the projects that we executed with our customer in Berlin? Well, energy monitoring and energy management systems are the baseline. Yeah, many energy management systems struggling with the integration of data from very heterogeneous landscapes or systems that are in place, and our cloud solution is really smart enough to make the integration as easy as possible. When it comes to the profitability assessment of such projects, state subsidies shall be considered. For example, in Germany or in Europe, we have 30 to 40% subsidies that can be saved for the customers. In the current situation, if quick wins are required, and this is what often happens, our customers are often pushed by their end customers to achieve CO2 carbon neutrality on a short term. This can be done by or achieved by carbon credits. And when we have a look on the state of technology in the plants, there's still room for improvement in the energy and in the resource efficiency. But these are no longer, in most cases, no longer the low-hanging fruits, but these are projects that require interdisciplinary teams, like from process engineering and electrical engineering and mechanical engineering, and also from energy management system experts. At the end, all that kind of projects are really, really crucial to have the support of the C-level management. This is absolutely mandatory. In consideration of all the new regulation and laws and also the demand from the financial market, this is no longer a nice have. As we started at the beginning, the time is changing for our industry and it's time to act. Yeah, well, thanks. That was our webinar about 3 steps to carbon neutral production. Thanks for your time and your participation. If you are interested to get more details about this best practice or about others, just get in touch with us. Or if you want to learn more about the subsidy and funding programs in Europe or in US or wherever you are, please get in touch with us, with your local contact or with me personally. Here are my personal contacts also given. And yeah, that was my part. Are there any questions currently in the chat? Anna, can you see something?
No, there are no questions.
Ah, perfect. Okay. So it means we have so many information that no questions are open anymore. Well, please feel free to contact us also afterwards if you have really any other topics you would like to discuss, or if you're interested in that kind of workshop to get an initial overview about the situation that we are open for. Just get in touch with us. Then I would like to say thank you very much for your time and participation. It was a pleasure, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you.